Let's get into the game preview. What are we watching when the Raiders have the ball? Hopefully, not a lot of running, but what else are we looking for?
I mean, go back to what you did in Baltimore, man. Get Brock Bowers the ball. I mean, Brock Bowers was not involved that often early on for some reason. He had a tested for concussion, but came back in. But I think if Davante's not doing it, it has to be Bowers. So I think get those two guys going, and specifically Bowers this week because he's a tough guy to match up with. So I mean, the Browns have a lot of guys who are talented on defense, but I'm not sure they have a guy who can cover Brock Bowers. So I think get him involved early and often is my big key.
Yeah, I think it's time for them to try to air it out. As we've talked about, they just they're one of the worst run blocking teams in NFL history, apparently, according to the first 3 games of the season. So pass first, open up the run. I think it needs to be their approach. I mean, we saw the Giants last week against this Browns defense. While the Browns are known for having a pretty good secondary, I mean, Daniel Jones was giving them the blues. I mean, Malik Neighbors had a lot to do with that, making some pretty incredible catches. But I mean, the Raiders have Davante Adams, they have and Brock Bowers, mentioned 2 guys that they should be able to exploit matchups. And so I think it's time to air it out. See if they can get the offense going and potentially get ahead, and then at that point maybe it's a little bit easier to run the ball. But I think that shift in the approach is what I'm going to be looking for the most.
Yeah, the Browns are a heavy man team. They play a lot of man. They don't really double team a lot. They kind of trust their guys to play. So this could be a big Devante Adams game. They give up a lot of yak too. When they're not playing man, they play a lot of soft zone. So they'll give up those catches underneath, and they haven't been great at tackling. They are the eighth worst team as far as yards after catch per reception. So that means get the ball to Brock Bowers and let him run underneath. I don't think they did a good enough job of just trying to get the ball into Bowers' hands last week. So I think the game plan this week should be give him the ball however you can. Get him a bubble screen, get him the ball in the flats, whatever you can. Let him run with the ball because this Browns team will give up some yards after catch.
One thing we should mention about Devontae was he did show up on the injury report today, a hamstring injury, which I guess happened during practice. I'm not sure how serious it is. I don't think it's that serious, but he did. I mean, his name was on the report. And that was a new development today.
Yeah, and also tight end Michael Mayer, he missed today due to a personal reason. I'm not sure what that is, but we'll see. I mean, hamstrings are tricky. You can get out there and test on game day and not be able to go. So definitely something to monitor for Devontae. And that'd be a huge loss for Chris.
Yeah, and if he's limited or not himself, then Tre Tucker, he's that deep threat, and against man coverage, you're going to get some shots. So this could be one of those games for Tre Tucker, and we've seen him have some big games when teams try to play man against him last year. So when the Browns have the ball, what are we watching for?
I mean, in the past, they've tried to kind of get their running game going. That's kind of been their foundation. It hasn't worked this year, so I think the Raiders have their defense has not been great against the run. So ideally, you don't give a lot of yards to Jerome Ford, but he's not a bad back. I think if you got to stop the run, I think that's what they're going to try and establish. Much like the Raiders are going to try and establish it on their end. And then at that point, you free up Deshaun Watson to get some stuff done. So I think limit the running game, therefore you can limit Deshaun Watson. He has been the same guy he was 3 years ago. So I think don't give him a chance to be that guy. Kind of keep the pressure on him and don't give him too much room to operate.
Yeah, I think the Raiders really got to get the pass rush going in this one. Like the Browns last week, I think they gave up 8 sacks, I believe, to the Giants. Obviously, the Giants are a very formidable defensive line, but I think as much of the issue is that Browns offensive line is really just destroyed right now by injuries, which we talked about. And, I mean, the Raiders have had the worst pass rush in the league so far this season. They're last in pressure rate, at bottom 5 in sacks. And they've been aggressive. I mean, from a play calling standpoint. I mean, Patrick Graham is typically a guy that doesn't blitz a whole bunch, but they're top 5 in blitz rate. Some of that is because they've been using more 5-man fronts, which technically counts as a blitz. But they've been blitzing pretty often. And they still haven't been able to get much pressure at all. And I think that's been a mix of, obviously losing Kuntz, Maxx Crosby being hurt, but also on the interior, they aren't getting the pass rush that they expected. And so, I mean, you're going against a team that's really, I don't know if there's another offensive line in the league that's in a worse state than the Browns right now. And so, if the pass rush is ineffective again this week, even with Maxx Crosby being hampered, I think that's going to be a really rough sign for this defense.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why they're not getting home on these blitzes is they're playing a lot of soft zone. I think this week you got to try to get in those receivers' faces, press them a little bit, make Deshaun hold the ball for half a second longer, and make that offensive line work. I mean, this line is going to be more depleted than it was last week against the Giants, possibly. I mean, both tackles might be out. Those tackles played in the game against the Giants, and they still gave up those sacks. So, um, if those guys are out, this defensive line really has to take advantage. And I think even if Crosby plays at 60%, he might be able to get a sack on this line. Um, Another thing, with I don't know if it's a direct result of Crosby not being 100%, but Christian Wilkins got double teamed 26 times against the Panthers, which is extremely high rate. So if teams aren't focused on Crosby, then they're going to be focused on taking away Christian Wilkins, and that means somebody else is going to have to win. I mean, Wilkins, I think, will still get some pressure, but who's going to step up? Is it going to be Tyree, who I thought had a pretty encouraging game last week, or is it going to be Adam Butler inside? Somebody else is going to have to win, especially if Crosby's not at 100%.
Yeah, I mean, teams have been able to take Wilkins out of it from a passer standpoint this season. And right now, he has a pressure rate of 4.3% according to True Media, which is 203rd in the NFL right now. And so a lot of that seems to be with him getting double teamed, but also just not being the game record that they anticipated. Obviously, it's early in the season, so we'll see if he's able to turn it around. But there's only so many somebody else's. You know what I mean? On this defensive line with Koontz being hurt, Crosby being hampered, like they need their big money guys to step up and play well, especially going against offensive line like this. And so, double team be damned, they need to make some noise back there and get after Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I've been rough on Tyree in the past, but I talked to him today. I do think he has some confidence going. I think that, like last year, I wouldn't say that was the case. Last year he was a little lost, maybe felt a little pressure, a little too much. This year, I don't think he's feeling any pressure. He's been working pretty hard and he's trying to work on his eyes better, like the vision, what he sees as far as the line of scrimmage and how teams are doing, adjusting to his pass rushes. So I think he's got the right mindset. I think he knows this is kind of his time. He's going to have plenty of reps to make some plays. I think he's looking forward to the challenge. So I think there's a little more hope there than I would have thought in the past with Tyree.
Yeah, and another thing is, it doesn't. I don't think this is a game where you have to blitz that much. I think you just need to play coverage and make this offensive line work those one on ones, especially if you're down to their third, second string tackles. So yeah, you're gonna have to get home with your 4-man rush and try to contain Deshaun Watson. Um, and let's get into our matchups of the game. What matchups are you guys looking for?
Well, it was one big obvious one. Got I think it's the first time, right? The first revenge game for
For Coop,
receiver Amari Cooper. I think Coop
yeah,
versus this Raiders secondary. I guess I would say matchup. I'm not sure if the Raiders gonna have somebody travel with him around the field, but him versus the secondary, I think he's going to be pretty motivated coming in here against the Raiders for the first time in Allegiant Stadium. The secondary, lost a big piece in Epps for the season, and I think it hasn't been as good as advertised even when he was out there. I think at cornerback, I think Ja'Cory Bennett's been solid, but Jack Jones hasn't been the difference maker in the same way that he was last season. And Ted mentioned earlier, Nate Hobbs had some struggles against the Panthers, and so I think Cooper is really the only juice this Browns offense has had, if you would say that this offense has had any juice through the first 3 weeks of the season. And so I think whether they're able to bottle him up is really going to determine whether they're able to select the Browns on offense.
he had a slow start, but he had a big week last week, and he's a very savvy guy. He definitely, I would think Ja'Cory would be a tough matchup because of his experience, and they could probably counteract Ja'Cory's physicality pretty well. So I have to think of Jack Jones on him most of the time. And Jack hasn't had a great start to there either, but I think it's a tough matchup. Like I said, Coop is and people give him a hard time because his body language is not great, and I think maybe he doesn't love football as much as the other guys do. But he's been doing it for a long time now. He's definitely very consistent. He can make the sideline catch. He can beat a guy and block a guy out. He can beat him deep. I think he's a very complete receiver who I'm sure he'll never say this, but I'm sure it's a big game for me. He knows like what people thought of him here, and kind of when he was gone, it wasn't like everyone's like, "Oh, we lost Cooper." It was kind of like, it didn't really. It wasn't really one of us. So I think it's a big game for him. I think he'll be motivated. I think he's a tough matchup for either Jack Jones or Ja'Cory Bennett.
Yeah, Ja'Cory Bennett's not. I mean, he's Ja'Cory's like a taller corner, and he has played well, especially on those boundary passes where they try to get him on a sideline. But against like a really shifty guy like Amari Cooper, that could be a pretty tough matchup. And I think Nate Hobbs might have the body type to be a little bit better, but he got burnt by Deontay Johnston last week, so hopefully he has a bounce back game against Amari Cooper. And where Amari Cooper actually has been really dangerous is in the red zone. So, I think you can kind of guarantee that you'll see a lot of man coverage in the red zone, and that's where Amari eats. He's one of the better route runners in this league for a long time.
I was going to say he's had some really bad quarterback play too. Deshaun Watson has not been good for a while, so I think it's also a tribute to him. But yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see him again. Fun to see what he does. I'm not sure if Raider fans, the new Las Vegas fans, care too much about Amari Cooper, but let's just say once a Raider, always a Raider. So I think but we'll see what he does.
Yeah, the matchup I'll watch out for is Miles Garrett against either Glaze or Mumford. I mean, it's he's so good. Like he could wreck the game by himself. I mean, he's dealing with a ton of injuries. I mean, I think every part of his body's hurt right now. But even at whatever he's going to play at 70, he's a game wrecker. And obviously, they're going to try to help him help as much as he can with chip blocks. But he could do everything. He could run through you. He could speed rush you. Like he could run through chips. Like it's going to be a very very difficult matchup.
You know, you travel cornerbacks. Why can't you travel like tackles? Why can't you travel Cole Miller from side to side? That's what I would do.
Yeah. And Getsy called Garrett the best player in the league today. That
Yeah,
was
Raider fans
quite
like,
the
So Max
oh
Crosby
man.
cannot,
Okay, this
cannot
is
have been
Crosby
bad.
motivation. Yeah.
yeah,
Get him
the,
fired
the,
up.
yeah. I don't think he meant it that way, but I mean, he's not wrong, right? The guy was the defensive player of the year last year, and I think in terms of those guys who are in the higher echelon, I think it is Max and Miles Garrett and probably T.J. Watt, probably the three best guys. I may be forgetting somebody, but I think those three.
Micah Parsons pretty good, but yeah, they're in
Michael
also
Parsons,
pretty
but yeah. So I mean, there's very few guys at that level. I don't think Max should have a big problem with Luke saying that, but you never know.
All right, what's your matchup? Is that Amari Cooper too?
Uh, well, I mean, I think it's the running games, right? Whichever team can run the ball is going to win the game, probably. So I think ideally, Zamir White gets going, or
Oh,
I don't
I think the Raiders might lose then. If
But I think the answer is going to be neither there. I think
well,
that's
someone
probably
have better day. I mean, they can't be tied. Someone have more yards rushing and better yards per
yeah,
carry
that's true.
average. So, man, look at you says we're making progress, man. I'm a believer, and people hopefully they're not lying to us. So maybe we'll see some signs of progress. But because theoretically, like you said, it should not be a bad match as far as this new run scheme. It kind of fits the O line. Maybe they're getting. I mean, the Browns are banged up. I mean, but so yeah, the matchup to me is a two-winning game. So whoever runs the ball, in my mind, better is going to win the game.
All right, let's get into our X factors. My X factor is going to be Tyree Wilson. We talked about it. Can he take advantage of those one-on-one matchups? Build on his pretty good game last week against a very beat up Browns defensive line and offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Tyree. Gotta make some shit shake at some point. You know what I mean? But I know that they've been very careful with expectations. He needs more reps, all this stuff. But like, gotta do something eventually. You know what I mean? And they need him in a bad way with the way the pass rush is right now. And I think going against this Browns offensive line, like you know, you need a breakthrough performance for him. So maybe this ends up being.
My X factor is going to be Tre Tucker. I'm going to say he makes a big play running the ball on an end around or reverse to get the. I mean, I think and we saw some big plays in the past, catching the ball last week. So I think they'll find him a little bigger of a role because obviously he has some juice to him, and maybe end around goes for a big play
All right,
or
so
jet sweep, maybe a jet sweep. But we'll see.
Trey Tucker check on the rushing touchdown bet from Vic Tafur.
I'm not sure you can get. I'm not sure you can find those odds, but if you can,
Yeah,
unload,
it's
lock and load.
All
Max
right.
Max win.
Yeah, and one more thing I found pretty interesting, or an interesting stat from last year, is the home and away splits for the Browns defense is pretty startling. And some people think it's because they rely a lot on snap count, and obviously when teams have to go silent count, it's a pretty big disadvantage for that pass rush. and handling the blitz and communication and all that. And yeah, the Raiders are playing at home, so that might be an advantage, a little bit of an X factor.
It wasn't last week, but yeah,
It
maybe it
wasn't.
is.
It was not. All right, so let's get into our predictions. Our favorite part of the show. I know fans love it.
We're 0 for 3, right? 0 for 3 on the year?
0
Yeah,
for 3.
yeah,
0 for
0 for
3.
3, baby. Can't,
yeah. Well, Vic already
can't,
made his prediction last week. So tell us.
I did. I go with the Browns. Browns by a final score of 24-20, I'll say. I think yeah, I think they're probably. I mean, I know as bad as Deshaun Watson's been, you still might say he might be the best quarterback in the field. I think Maxx Crosby, if he can play, how good is he going to be? I know Myles Garrett's in the same kind of boat, but I don't think Max is going to be the same kind of guy you need him to be. And so I think the defense is definitely going to be limited with him out and Marcus Epps out and Kuntz out and Deablo out. There's a lot of holes. I know the Browns have some injuries too, but for me, those holes are bigger. I think the Browns could probably take more advantage of those than the Raiders can. So I'll say 24-20.
And Neil, could we get like a applause sound effect or something because Vic took the? There we go. Vic did it. Raider fans needed us to disagree on a pick, and Vic took the bullet. So yeah,
Or are you disagreeing? Are you picking the Raiders?
I'm gonna pick the Raiders to win. I think
Okay.
the Browns are a very bad team. They are injured. They lost to the New York Giants, who are a very bad team. I think the Raiders will get some of that. I don't know, some of that Antonio Pierce magic.
This is not very fucking convincing.
Come in and play a good game. I think they learned their lesson. They're not going to try to force the run. Maybe to iron out some of those issues that are we saw in film, and maybe Gardner Minshew just pulls a trigger on some of these passes that he's passing up, and they move the ball efficiently. Like I said, the Browns team, they give up some yak. I think they'll be smart and get Brock Bowers the ball. Davante Adams is good with yak. I think Tre Tucker hit catches a deep pass for either an explosive pass play or a touchdown. Final score, I'm gonna say 20-16.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm going with the Raiders too. I got them winning 18-17. I think they're gonna
Ooh, 1 point
one
game.
score a touchdown at the end and go for it. 2 point conversion, win the game. That's how they're gonna pull it out at home. Dramatic win. Brock Bowers gonna catch 2 point conversion. There you go.
Wow,
Raiders win.
All right.
that's quite the prediction. Got every detail. I like it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, oh, yeah. Gotta be specific.